everyone here. It's a pleasure to be amidst academicians and friends from different colleges. I'm just seeing the chat box. So many of you have logged in and are wishing good morning. So very good morning to everybody. I begin by thanking Dr. Sendil Kumar, who has relentlessly pursued me to participate in this seminar for months together. We've finally been able to fructify that, and I'm very, very happy. I also thank the generous introduction and all the good words and greetings that has come my way this morning. I believe I'm to speak to all of you in English because there are also friends, as I see, from other parts of the country. Mumbai, I saw someone from Raebareli, so Kerala. So perhaps English is the best medium. But I request anyone who feels like they would like to hear me speak in Tamil or any other language that I might know, to later on persuade me to share something if they wish. So I will speak this morning to you in English for all practical purposes. The topic for today was, I must say, chosen by Dr. Sendil Kumar, because I told him, why don't you tell me what you'd like to hear me speak about? And of course, the title that he had suggested was, knowledge is our superpower. Simply, knowledge is our superpower. It was a statement. I wrote back to him and said, why don't you make it, knowledge is our power, with a question mark. Some of you might have wondered why there is a question mark. So if you were to say it, you would probably say it as, knowledge is our power. So it's a question. Those of you who spoke before me this morning have emphatically said that knowledge is perhaps the most important gift, and one that teachers share with students, academicians share with the world. And so the pursuit of knowledge is one of the most noble pursuits in the world. That's true. But I place a question mark there because I want us to collectively, together, reflect if in fact knowledge is power. Let me begin with myself. Now, in my introduction, for those of you who are not familiar with me, who are not from, who are not familiar with Tamil and Tamil contexts, you may not know that I'm a fairly well-known actor. I'm a fairly well-known, as they say, celebrity of this state. Not just the state, but all Tamil-speaking audience. So wherever I go, if there is a Tamil crowd, chances are people would recognize me, people would know me. And the knowledge that they have of me, including Dr. Sendil Kumar, and I can be very sure of that, is that I'm an actor. I'm a dancer. I'm someone who is in the world of entertainment and the arts. It's very true. Right, which is very true, right? I mean, I'm sorry, I just got distracted by the chat box. I think I should. I'm keeping the chat box open, so if you'd like to say something, you may. Right? Okay. Because it's nice to have a conversation rather than just reel off into a monologue. So that's the perception, or that's the knowledge they have of me. And that is also part of my identity. That's also part of the introduction that they just gave me. Is that knowledge something that they can claim as the entirety of what they know about me? Let us say. For those of you who are sitting there and wondering, what can an actor, what can a dancer, or in some cases, if someone was really patriarchal, they could even say, what can a girl, a woman, a lady really say about knowledge is power? I mean, why should I hear her speak? What am I going to learn from her? True, I agree with you. But knowledge, somebody says my voice is not very clear. Is that true? Please, can someone just tell me if my voice is clear or if there is a disturbance?
Clear, ma'am, clear.
Because someone is saying voice is
It's
not
clear, ma'am.
clear.
It's clear.
Okay. Good. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So, what knowledge you have of me, you must understand, and you'd be surprised to know, is not entire, is not all of knowledge. Because I'm not just an actor, I'm not just a dancer, I'm an academician, I'm a research scholar, I'm a Fulbright fellow, I am many other things. So very often when, say, a film magazine or, a film-related person meets me and they ask me, oh my God, why haven't you done a film in so many years? They assume, with what knowledge they have that I'm not doing anything else. But it's only when you seek knowledge will you know that I've had to spend 8 years to achieve a PhD. It's only when you seek that knowledge will you know that I went away to United States of California, to the University of California to get a postdoctoral degree. So even in the context of a single person, the person today who's sitting in front of you, the idea of knowledge is a very elusive one. It escapes all of us. No one person in this entire world is knowledgeable. When I say that, what I mean is one can never know everything. One can definitely not even know everything about anything. You take your own discipline, whether it is a discipline of science or a discipline of the arts or a discipline of management, engineering, law, whatever it may be, no one can possess all knowledge. No one person can ever claim that they understand everything that there is to be understood. Even a librarian, for that matter, you may be the librarian of one of the largest libraries in the world, and I have visited some of the best libraries in the world. Even my own institution, University of California, Los Angeles, had 3 massive, phenomenal libraries. The Charles Young Library was massive. There were 8 librarians in-house who were 24/7 there. I'm talking about libraries because this is in the realm of librarians here, so it might also resonate with you, right? So very often, they will never, they might know what is where, but if you ask them about every single discipline that there is in that library, which was over thousands and thousands of books, it's not possible. The best of scientists in the world may not be in possession of the understanding of everything within the sciences. They may have specializations. Doctors, they may be the best surgeon in the world, cardiologist in the world. But you can't go to him and say, please also treat my ear. Why can't you? The ear is not very far from the heart, right? So the idea is, somebody is saying voice is not clear constantly. I don't understand. Is it clear or is it not clear?
Is it clear, ma'am? You are
Ma'am,
audible.
clear, ma'am.
Okay, because someone or the other is constantly saying what someone is saying clear, someone is unclear. Okay, so I'll wait for Dr. Sendil Kumar to tell me if it's not clear. Okay, thank you, because it's constant. Okay, so all this to wrap and say that all of knowledge cannot be possessed. So when all of knowledge cannot be possessed, what is this power that we are speaking about? The word power, we use power today in so many motivational and inspirational ways. The minute we say power, we feel like it's a positive thing. I put a question mark there because is power positive? That's a question I want us to think about, reflect on. We always, if there are professors here, I'm sure you've told your students many times, knowledge is power. Knowing everything, making sure you study well for your exams or whatever, mastering your discipline. is a sign of power, because with that you obtain great grades. With great grades, you get out of college and you find a wonderful job, and with that job you make a lot of money, and with that money you buy a house, I don't know, buy a car, and have a great bank balance. So this idea of connecting power to material success is our understanding of power. But somehow knowledge, or the pursuit of knowledge, the searching, the seeking for knowledge, has nothing to do with material gain. The best of scholars in this world, and I've had the good fortune of being mentored by some of the brilliant minds, philosophers, historians, archaeologists, who are all my mentors and gurus. None of them have had material success. None of them have, most of them didn't even have a house of their own. They couldn't even afford to buy in their lifetime. With the amount of knowledge that they have gained, they were not able to even buy a house of their own in their lifetime, entire lifetime. So all that knowledge that they had, did it translate to power? If power is to be called as success, then no. Because they did not have the power, does it mean that they were less knowledgeable? Certainly not, because they were able to share the knowledge with, like for those of us, right? I mean, I went and I was mentoring under this historian, archaeologist, I mean, not just one, but several, who have inspired me to do great many things. Things that have ultimately given me recognition, given me material gains, but it's still not gone back to them. Unless, of course, I ethically choose to share it, right? Which we will do. If you are an ethical student, then you will share your success, or you share your material gains, in, at least in portions, with those who have managed to make you able. So I don't understand in my head this relationship between power and knowledge. I understand the relationship between power and success because that's all human made. But power and knowledge seldom go hand in hand. Knowledge is a going within. You have to seek. You need to be thirsty. You need to be hungry constantly, all day, every day, all the time. But power, as they say, you know, as the adage goes, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Power corrupts. Power allows you to think that you have achieved, you've reached the goal, which means you don't have anywhere to go from there. You're there. You will remain there, right? So I don't know if ethically power and knowledge have the same characteristic. But I leave that to your own thinking. I'm not here to sermonize. I'm not here to teach you anything, possibly. I mean, there's nothing I can teach. I don't even teach in my own classroom. I always call myself a facilitator. My students learn from themselves. I learn from them. I also learn from myself as they learn from themselves. So it's I prefer to break down the classroom. I call my classrooms anti-classrooms. So there is no question of me teaching and somebody else learning, even when they are there to learn. So possibly there's nothing I can share and teach here for all of you. However, I let my mind wander and I'll share some of my thoughts with you. Perhaps it'll have you thinking, and you can in turn share it with others, and you know, that we can create a chain of thinking about knowledge, power, and the question mark that I added to that statement. Because we often say knowledge is power. It's a very often used motivational statement. But I want to add that question, because what is this power? How do you translate it? I'm going to, I don't know, I don't think, right, I do have a very, very short presentation here. I mean, it's just 4 slides. We don't have to see it, but we could if we really want to. Hang on. How do I do this? Are you able to see my screen?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
You're able to see the presentation, yeah?
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. That's great. Okay, great. I mean, so like I said, I prefer to add that question mark there because I'm not very sure power and knowledge have, are good partners, but we'll ask ourselves if they are in fact. And I mean, you can also ask me later on if there is a possibility to have some discussion or a Q&A. I want to, I mean, before I take you into this, I want to sort of, they only see, I have my discipline, which is the arts, right? And many of you here may not be from the discipline of the arts or may not even be from the discipline of history, which is also one of my domains. I'm also a sociologist, so there's social sciences. Some of you may not be familiar with social sciences. I know that there are some students of engineering and people from the world of business here. So we're a very, very diverse group of academicians. So, or people in the academic world. So I'm not going to burden you with any examples or any sort of analogies from my own discipline, but I'll try and keep it very, very generic and common. Also for the reason that, we'll all be able to relate to this. The one thing that all of us who are gathered in this meeting today can relate to is the idea of India, the idea of the country, right? I mean, we all, in one or the other way, invoke our position as the citizens of this nation. Excuse me. And we also invoke, in many ways, the notion of our own discipline, whether it's the sciences or it's engineering or any discipline within India, the geography of India. So I'm going to write. So India is, and I want to share here with all of you that a lot of my understanding of anything, of any discipline, obviously comes from my shared conversations with my own mentors, one of whom is Professor Sanjay Subramaniam, who's a world-renowned historian in UCLA right now and from Paris, and of course also Professor Ramila Thapar from JNU and many others who are all phenomenal thinkers in this world. So I share some of my understandings of things as they see it as well. But it's also my own understanding. Right. So India as seen. I say as seen because this is how we see India, most of us, right? I mean, there may be exceptions here. I'm not talking about exceptions, but these are the thumb rules. There are only two ways we are able to see India. One is either India, and this is very important for us. Why India? Because all of knowledge production is based on our understanding of where we are and who we are. Who are we? We are Indians. Where are we? We are in India. And so what is India? India was invented in a not so distant past by the British. I mean, this is, do people make these statements on an everyday basis? No. But is this the notion behind many of the things that we do? Yes. For example, every time there is a policy, every time there is a building, every time there is a certain cultural context, we understand that most of it has been constructed in this immediate past, 18th, 19th, 20th centuries, the colonial past of India. We're all still in many, many ways, part of that colonial thinking, part of that colonial legacy, part of that colonial history, part of that colonial continuum, right? I mean, the British have left India in 1947, but British thinking, British understanding, British buildings, British ways of life, which were not entirely just British, right? Indians mostly elite Indians and the Britons who lived in India sort of, came together to create a very, even English as we speak today. When somebody asks us, we'll say, yes, we were ruled by the British for 300 years, so we all speak English. But what is the English that you speak? We speak Indian English. It is closer to British English, but it is very distinct. And if you really need to understand this sort of Indianness of English, I'm sure most of you here may have might be familiar. The delightful writings of Shashi Tharoor will enlighten us on most of our Indianisms, as we can call it, or Britishisms, if that were true, right? I mean, brinjal, for example, right? I mean, it's a very Indian way of calling what is eggplant as brinjal. So, I mean, I'm just giving you a very simple example. So, the idea that India is a constructed creation of a not so distant colonial past is one way that India is seen today. Indian history, Indian economy, Indian society, Indian sciences, all of these. I mean, almost every discipline, when we teach our students in classrooms, just think about it. When we talk of the history of the discipline, we don't take it any farther back than its British or colonial origins, right? When we talk of archaeology, we talk of Edgar Thurston, we talk of the Asiatic Society and the London Society of Archaeology that was established, and how the first archaeologists from Britain came here and excavated, and so on and so forth, right? So the idea of history, or the idea of India itself, is seen through this colonial rule, and it's a very constructivist view. The other view, which is quite the opposite of the first view, is this time immemorial view, where we say, oh, India is a very, very, very old nation. How old? Oh, time immemorial. We cannot even go back in time. I mean, several thousands and thousands of years. And then we will just rattle off. I mean, for some, it will be 2,500 years. For some others, it will be 20,500 years. For someone else, it will be 250,000 years, right? I mean, everything is plausible within this time immemoriality, right? Because, I mean, time is of no essence there. I mean, we're as old as human civilization or whatever, or even the creation of Earth, right? So that time immemoriality is one another way of looking at, or the opposite way of looking at India, in which also they construct sort of this 3 phases, or 2.5 phases, if you want to call it, right? So the first phase is this classical Indian civilization, the Indo-Gangetic plains, typically, because, Indus Valley and so on and so forth, but even the pre-Indus Valley, like the phase 1, which ends at the beginning of the new millennium, the beginning of what we now call as the Common Era, but what was called as AD, BC, right? At the end of BC and the beginning of AD. First century AD is the end of this first phase. This first phase is full of, great many civilizational inventions of what is today considered as India. The second phase, of course, from the first century CE onwards, all the way up till its medieval and even late early modern period, is this period of confusion and decline. Why I say that? Because you have so many dynasties, they come, they rule, they are wonderful, but there's a lot of strife and war, and then they decline. Somebody else comes, they decline, etc. Right? But roughly, we understand this entire second phase as something that can be connected to what these people who believe in this time immemoriality talk about as this Islamic rule. The Mughals came. Oh, we had a lot of people who invaded. They ruined India's culture. There was so much decline. This and that happened. And India still withstood because she's an ancient civilization. You've heard this so many times. You can never deny it. The third phase, which may still be incomplete. I mean, we're all supposed to be in the third phase, according to them, which is now because there was an amazing India, and then there was an invasion, and there was plundering, and there was looting, and there was decline in the second phase. we as responsible Indians have to resurge, come up, and return to our roots, which means we have to go back. We have to forget about the second phase, and we have to go back right to the first phase and talk about Pushpaka Viman, and we have to talk about all the great classical things so that India can resurge and get back her past and lost glory. This is another way of looking at India. Just give me 1 second now. Yes, sorry. Right. So, but let's just, just for the sake of knowledge, right? See, we talk about knowledge ever so often as something that will be there in books, especially in a library. And if you say pick up one book, and I love books, I must tell you this, I love books. My grandfather was a professor in St. Xavier's in Trichy, and he was both a professor of English as well as math, and he was also a dramatist. So you can imagine we were all brought up with the habit of reading. I don't think I watched TV for a very long time in my life. I used to go for my dance classes, and I used to come home and read, and books were my best friends. They still are. Whether I'm happy, sad, down or low, or high and up, the way I celebrate life is by reading books. So for me, books are my best friends. But having said that, say you have a particular stream of knowledge. You find one book. Nowadays we Google, right? We Google the topic, and then, some first 4 books that come up are your best go-tos. You go, you read that book. You may have loved that book. May have sounded extremely, quote unquote, knowledgeable. But once you finish that book and you put it back in that shelf, if you tell yourself, I have gained all knowledge and therefore I'm powerful, I'm afraid that you are wrong. I'm afraid that you have duped yourself into believing that your knowledge is power. And that's why that question mark makes a whole lot of sense for me. Right? So this idea that India, this word India, right? We talk about India in, like I said, in that time immemorial sense. We talk about India in its second phase. We talk about so many Indias. But where is this? Let's just get into the basic understanding. And this is, I'm not even, going into the history of this because, like I said, that's not my intention. This word India is derived from the word Hind. There's no taking away from that. And Hind is a deformation of the older word Sindh. Now, people have tried all kinds of other etymological origins for the word India, but unfortunately, friends, this is the only proven or provable history or truth or etymology to this word. So Hind, which comes from Sindh, has given rise to the word India, right? So Arabophone encyclopedias as well as geographers' notes on various medieval times. There are so many kaifatus and so many lugats and all of that. But talk of this India as not just the India that you see in the Indian map today. From Kashmir, of course, let's even think of India with Kashmir and Pakistan and all of that, because that India, we all know, the recent history was only in 1947. Until then, Pakistan was part of India. So even considering that from Pakistan to Kanyakumari was one India, and if we believe that that is the India which is called Sindh or which is called Hind, we are wrong. That's not knowledge. That's half knowledge. That's just one part of that knowledge. Al-Hind was many, many places combined. It was parts of Afghanistan. In some texts, and there are many, that's why I've said Arabophone encyclopedists, which means there are many encyclopedias. There is not a single encyclopedia. There are many geographers, and therefore there are many notes. There are many texts of the same period with equal authority. that define this Al-Hind very differently. Some of them, you'll be surprised, right? Many of us, and this lecture is organized by an institution situated in Coimbatore, which is in the south of India, which is below the Deccan, right? In between the 16th and 17th and even early 18th centuries, Hind or Hindustan did not include the Deccan. This southern part of India was not considered because these were all independent kingdoms. And then there are also other encyclopedias that is far more inclusive, meaning it has included not just this map as I told you, but it's also included Indonesia, Thailand, Cambodia, even has gone as far as Yemen, which has been included in this Al-Hind, right? So where are you going to place your knowledge? Knowledge is not accepting something that comes your way and nodding your head and saying, yes, this is right. How are we becoming part of this knowledge? Is knowledge power when you just read something and say, yes, this is God's gospel, this is the truth? Because if that's so, all somebody has to do to prove a false statement true is to write a book. Then, some 10 people will read it and say, yeah, there's a book and therefore it has to be true. Right? So I think the power, whatever that power is, like I said, I don't even believe in power. But if there is power, that power comes to us not through reading as many books. You can read 10 encyclopedias, you can read 10 geographers' notes, you can read about Hind, you can read about Sindh, you can read about Yemen, you can read about everything. It will only leave you with more questions than answers. You will never be able to arrive at a answer. There are very many answers to every question in this world. And to me, that's the beauty of knowledge, that there is not a single answer. If everything had a single answer, our entire knowledge system would be like a one-word answer question, right? This one-mark answer, as they say in schools, right? You have a single question and you have a single word answer, and we're all knowledgeable, we're all literate, we're all academicians, we're all everything. Powerful. But nothing in the world of academia, and academians here will know, right, that nothing in the world of academics in any discipline is about a singular answer. I recently, in a course that I was teaching some of my students called Creative Expressions, not recently, actually, I've been teaching that course for them actually for 2 years now. I taught them about, I was talking to them about creativity and originality, and I happened to give them the example of Thomas Alva Edison and the creation of electricity, or the discovery of electricity, the light bulb, right? The discovery of the light bulb. The way I spoke to them about originality is we broke free from this usual knowledge that, if you talk about the electric bulb, you talk about Edison, and then, from there on, your history is set. But there were many people before Edison who had contributed to the creation of the filament, to the creation of circuit, for somebody like Edison to build upon. In fact, one of them, the one who created the filament bulb, I forget his name now, who had actually created the filament bulb, which is the very basis for what Edison was able to discover, did not have the money to patent his work. Because he did not have the money to patent his discovery, we don't have his name in history. Is this not knowledge? Is his knowledge of identifying the filament and discovering the filament, is that not his power? But his power did not give him power, it gave him poverty. It gave him obscurity. We don't remember him. He is not in the pages of every history book. His photograph is not adorning all great scientific labs. It's Edison's. So knowledge and power have a very skewed relationship. It's a very unfair relationship. It's not a fair, equal, giving, loving relationship, I'm afraid. Which is why I struggle to understand why people want to be powerful. I'll come to that, right? I'll show you my last presentation. I mean, my last slide, really. So this brings me to the question of, naturally, right? If you're talking about India, and if you're talking about everything within India's culture, because even our discoveries, even all our inventions, everything, even under the COVID situation, India is constantly chest thumping about the pride of having, been part of some, certain medical discoveries, which has given instant or better, quicker access to vaccinations. We've spoken about how we have exported vaccines even when people here needed vaccines. We've done everything. I mean, all of this chest thumping around India is about India's culture. India is a hospitable nation. India is a growing nation. India is a very developing country. India has got a rich past. India has a bright future. We have X number of excellent sort of next gen Indians, so on and so forth. The Indian economy, no matter what our GDP says, we chest thump and say, no, Indian economy is growing, right? Indian economy is thriving. I mean, everything that we do within this space of India, whether it be business or anything, right? Preservation, art, culture, music, history, whatever, ultimately is spoken of or is convinced to be, it convinces people. You open the newspaper, all the chest thumping about different government policies and programs, all of this boils down to giving us this pride about our culture. Right? And culture is a very interesting word, and Romila ji talks about this very beautifully in very, very many contexts. And she says, cultural frontiers are very difficult to demarcate, and it's true. You cannot demarcate cultural frontiers. I mean, whose culture is it anyway? Right? Whether it be an object, an artifact, or a cultural identity. Let us take, we are all from Tamil Nadu, right? Let us take idli and sambar. Right? It's an object. I mean, it's something that our people at home make every day. I just had idli and sambar for breakfast, right? And people in Bombay and Delhi also like to have idli, and pardon me for the pun, but they have sambar, right? So they say we have idli and sambar in the morning, right? But for them, they know that it's South Indian, isn't it? And this is a cultural marker of India, sure, because nobody, when you go to America and Saravana Bhavan says Indian food, Saravana Bhavan doesn't say South Indian food, because nobody there cares about whether it's South, North, East or West. There it is merely Indian. So your identities sort of shift and change, and cultural identities change as you step into different geographies. But within India, in say Delhi, where my mom lives, I see so many boards that says hot South Indian idli breakfast. So I see so many Punjabis and others who will just run into that place because they love sambar, right? And we also make sambar and idli every day. But do we sit and worry about or think about even where this cultural object, the idli, comes from? I know somebody will say, no, please, let's break it down to its practical. It's rice and dal. That's not what I'm asking. I mean, it's cultural history, right? Somebody from Mysore will say, Arey, idli and sambar is from Mysore, Udupi. We are all the tiffin makers. Somebody in South will say, no, what are you talking about? In Ramanathapuram and in Sivagangai and all these other places, we make excellent idli. Somebody else will say sambar is Tanjavur, but it was created in Tanjavur, but it was in the honor of Shambhaji Maharaja Marathi, therefore it has to be Maharashtra. Somebody else will say, no, we add a little bit of sugar and so it is from Karnataka, and it has that sort of Karnataka, Canada, South Canada style. So you see, these cultural contexts have a huge significance when you talk about anything that you do within this geography of India. Right? Otherwise, I mean, you just consume it. You just have idli and sambar. It's non-controversial. That's not what I'm talking about. So to understand the chronological context, where did idli come from? Where is it coming from? Where are all the places it's been to? And whose cultural item is it? Is it Kannadiga? It is Tamil? Is it Tamil? Is it national? Or is it some kind of a steamed rice pudding cake that's come to us from Yemen? Because once upon a time, Al-Hind had Yemen as part of it. Somebody might write a book about it, and some 10 people would say, look, I think this is truth. Somebody else will say, no, 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 idli is from here. So there are multiple knowledges, you see. The place given to the creators of these objects, therefore. So we're talking about knowledge as multiple. Let's now come to the other word which is in our title, right? Power. Who has the power? Knowledge does not need any power. I mean, knowledge is in many ways inanimate, right? I mean, it's a thing. It's what we believe and share and possess, right, between all of us. You teach me something, you believe you have given me knowledge, I believe I've gained knowledge. It's a thing we possess. But as the giver of that knowledge and as the receiver of knowledge, we are people with, beating hearts. This knowledge that you give me, or this object that there is, that idli and sambar, by itself has no hierarchy or no position in society. But who makes that idli and who's eating that idli has a tremendous amount of social hierarchy. In any given context, I'm going to try and stop sharing screen because it's not necessary anymore. Yes, right. So in any given context, somebody makes the idli, and I'm holding on to that idli example. And that somebody is often either the homemaker, the mother, the woman. In many houses, there are also the men, so to equal power to them, more power to them. But in many houses, it's the cook. So the cook who makes the idli and say the employer or the judgeman of the house who eats that idli, are they in the same social hierarchy? He is the one who's making it. I mean, making naturally has more power, right? Unless he makes it, you can't eat it. Your plate will be empty. So at that point, you think that he holds power to that knowledge. He only knows how to make that idli. Only he knows how to make that sambar. So you would think that knowledge of knowing how to make idli is tremendous power, if knowledge is power. But the person who's eating that food, who's paying him to make that idli, you and I know that in the real world, he is the one who holds power. He may not know how to make idli at all, but he holds power. So take the same example into the context of everything that we do in this world, right? Teachers, institutions. Institutions share knowledge with students, but institutions are within a particular cultural commitment, whether it be from the government or whether it be as affiliates or whether it be as even autonomous, but you are still within a particular cultural context. A student is still walking into the portal of that institution demanding, and I say demanding because they are, unless it's a government college with full financial aid, students are paying for that education, paying to receive that knowledge. So the true power of that knowledge not always lies in the hands of the one who is the creator or who is the disseminator. So a professor in the classroom who is rattling off about, say, something that he or she does not entirely believe in is probably not always in the most powerful situation. They may hold a PhD and a postdoctoral degree, no doubt. Right? We may be scientists who have tremendous knowledge, but we are operating within the limits and commitments of a country, of a nation, whose demands on us has a huge role to play. So they are the judgments. We may be artists. I may be producing work. So therefore, I want to say that power is it's an interesting notion. We don't understand that the more knowledge we have, the less power we will have. Let me rephrase that. In order for us to have more knowledge, we must perhaps be less and less powerful. Because with power comes the inability to keep gaining more knowledges. And I have plural of knowledge because knowledge is not singular. Like I said, there is no one singular linear understanding of knowledge. There are several knowledges, even about the same thing. You may have, like, for example, I read about, let's say, a topic like Aryan invasion, right? I read 20 books with 20 different viewpoints. I don't read the 20 books to say, okay, I believe book A, I don't believe book E. For me, all of these are different knowledges. I'm able to bring all of this in. And then I become a storehouse of all of these knowledges. I'm still not powerful because I'm not doing anything with it. I can't do anything with it because I'm not in the position of power unless I choose a stance. I say, okay, A is the right answer, so I'm going to ideologically become part of A. I'm going, like, for example, in that example of India that I just gave you, you either say, look, India is a British discovery, India is a British invention, India is a recent past, anything that we have is colonial control. Or you take a second stance like the present Indian government and you say, yes, India is all about time immemorial. Everything that came in between as medieval history is to be destroyed, is to be set aside because it's all about invasion and Mughal history and Muslims and minorities. So let's set it aside and let's all be resurgent new citizens of Bharat. You have to pick a side. If you don't pick a side, you are naturally just a person who's gathering knowledge. You read about their ideology, you read about their ideology, you take their view, you become a storehouse. It's only when you let go of one knowledge for the sake of another knowledge that you become powerful. And the minute you become powerful, you're no more as knowledgeable because you refuse to accept knowledge. So I want to ask you now, and I want to end here with this note. I don't know, many of you may have read Hermann Hesse's Siddhartha. It's indeed one of my favorite books. But the question, after everything that I've shared with you now, the question is, so if knowledge is probably not power, or if knowledge cannot really give power, or that moment when you become powerful, you're no more knowledgeable, what can knowledge give? Knowledge should give something. It can't give you a bungalow. It cannot pay your EMI bills. It cannot do many things. It cannot make you the chief minister or the prime minister of the nation. What can it do? And a wonderful answer I get from Hermann Hesse's work is from how Siddhartha interacts, and that moment when Siddhartha speaks to this courtesan, right? He's asked, what can you do? You are a Jain saint. You have done nothing but be an ascetic in this world. What can you do? So Siddhartha says, I can think, I can wait, I can fast. These are his three qualities, he says. She says, what? You can think, you can wait, you can fast, and nothing else? You don't know how to trade, you don't know how to paint, you don't know how to sing, you don't know how to write scriptures, you know nothing. How can you make a living in this world? To which this boy Siddhartha says, look, fasting. You seem to think, you and I, as people who live in the real world and who get up and do our job and wait for that paycheck to come into your bank accounts, you and I will agree that if somebody were to pay us for thinking, waiting, and fasting, we'd be saints, or at least fake saints in this country, right? Because fake saints can think fast and still get lots of money into their accounts. But what can really thinking, waiting, and fasting bring you? So he says, look, 'You, you underestimate fasting. any kind of service in this world, whether you are an artist, whether you're a dancer, whether you are a academician, whether you're a scientist, whether you're a sociologist, whatever job you're doing, whether you're a service worker, whatever you may be, hunger is a human truth. Whichever part of the world you are, hunger is a human truth. It is for that one meal every few hours that everybody works, right? It is for that one meal. So when you learn how to get over that hunger, when you learn how to skip a meal, when you learn to be, no, you don't skip a meal because you don't have, you don't skip a meal and feel hungry and feel sad and feel angry and, feel agitated and irritated, and you don't look forward to the next meal. You learn to fast in a manner where you say, look, food or no food, life is the same. You go about your lunchtime and your dinner time and your breakfast time as if it's not your lunchtime and your dinner time. You get up, you do other things. That's fasting. That level of understanding of fasting can give you the ability to be calm, right? You become calm. I mean, can any one of us imagine? And we're all, let me blanket here a statement. I mean, we're all privileged enough to have a computer where we can get into a Zoom meeting or a Google Meet, right? So that's a certain privilege. You are in a certain society where you are not thinking about your next meal. You're probably thinking about your next meal because it's 12 noon and something is cooking at home. But what I mean is you're not wondering where it's coming from, right? So for those of us for whom thinking about food is not our worry, to be able to not think about food at all because it's not going to come, and to still be calm about it, that's a skill. That's power, right? So he says, fasting has its benefits. I mean, I can be patient. And when I'm patient, he says, I know how to wait. It's not as if I want to not ever eat and die. Even if my meal is going to come to me, say 10 or 15 or 20 days later, I know how to carry on with the rest of my life and duties and work patiently and wait for that 20th day when that meal will arrive. So to fast and to wait become very, very useful, powerful qualities. And finally, he says, look, you're all in the pursuit of gaining or searching for so much knowledge, so many knowledges, as I said. Can you imagine all of these knowledges in this world? How do you make sense of it? How do you find yourself in that knowledge? The only way to do that is to think. So somebody in the beginning who introduced me spoke about how screen fatigue and students' attention spans are dwindling, and therefore he's very worried about whether they are gaining knowledge. I want to humbly submit that they can sit attentively in a Zoom meeting for the next 20 hours without moving, or come to a classroom and listen to us lecture away for the next 5 years and still remain not knowledgeable at all. The only time that somebody is going to begin the path of moving into this realm of knowledge is when they stop and start thinking about what they have learned or what they have understood, right? So the self is the only teacher in anything. Even the best scientists, if you take and read their autobiography, that moment of revelation came to them when they were alone. All the solutions that they did, all the theorems that they put, everything that they did will fructify only in their minds. So the thinking capacity is the most important thing. And if we don't give anybody the time to think, and if we stuff them with knowledge, no use. So for me, Siddhartha makes me think that, of course, waiting and fasting are two things that we're going to spend a lifetime trying to achieve, but at least thinking becomes a very, very important tool. So friends, I want to end this morning by sort of bringing to you this understanding that knowledge is in fact several knowledges. Power is in fact only the stoppage of knowledge, and power that is connected to material success is never the best course of action, perhaps, for knowledge. Instead, fasting, waiting, and thinking, especially thinking, is perhaps the most fruitful, tasteful, enjoyable, purposeful outcome of knowledge gathering. And if one were to start thinking, and if one were to start waiting patiently, the success, the material success they try to get out of that, or the material success that will come to them, will in fact perhaps be power or powerful. But that power will not be one where, you are the judgeman and eating that idli, but you will start thinking about how the maker of that idli perhaps deserves and has equal power. So which means you will be the one to break free from social hierarchy. You will be the one to break free from norms and break free from standard notions of culture and hegemony and caste and class and all kinds of hegemonies and hierarchies in society. So to that person, knowledge is power. To all of us, I'm not so sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Participant, if you have any query, yes. There are two questions in chat box, ma'am.
Sure.
Dr. A. Victor, what are the ways current generation people to increase correct knowledge power, because so many fake agencies arise to give knowledge?
Some of the what? What agencies? What is a fake agency?
Fake, duplicate.
Who's original? I have no understanding of what's fake and what's original, sir. There are, like I said, there is one and then there's the other. I don't know what's fake. I mean, if you mean fake universities, see, those are